So next up, I've asked Todd and Travis Roki to give us a little overview of a drip on their farm. One thing that's unique about what they're doing is they have a confinement hog operation, and we are taking the manure from the hog lagoon and blending it with water and running it through the drip system. This is the second year that we've done this, and it's had a few challenges early in the year I'm sure they'll tell you about. But here later in the season, things have really worked well. So we're going to give them a few minutes here to share what they're doing.
Okay, thanks, Kurt. It's a privilege to be here and to talk about what we got going on at our farm here. I realize probably not very many of you raising hogs don't have access maybe to manure, but for those of you that do, you can see we can give you some information that we've come across. Some of the things to do, some things not to do. And we're still learning, as has been pointed out. And Kelly and Steve, the more you do these kind of things, the more you figure out you don't know. And what we've got a lot more things we can learn and improve upon, no question about that. So a lot of my slides here are primarily pictures, so we won't spend a lot of time on it. Just kind of give you some history of how we got into what we're doing and where we hope to go. What are the things we're going to try to continue to work at. NutraDrip started using the word effluent, and I had to look to the dictionary. What's that mean exactly? Okay, and so we're basically on our farm we always called it manure, or some other words. And so, but it's basically taking a waste material and discharging it into the environment, and especially if it's classified as a pollutant. And manure, hog manure, can be a pollutant. Too much of a good thing is not good. KDHE, EPA, they don't like that. So we've got to control it, and that's where the help of the drip system has come in, definitely. So go to the next slide. Before I get any further into this talk, I've got to point out this slide. This was the crew putting in our drip system, and those are all my children in that picture. So kind of special there. My three oldest children, you'll see them walking around here. Hannah, Travis, Kristen, all employees of NutraDrip. My fourth child says, he's not falling for that trap. He's not going there. So he's got other aspirations. But nonetheless, one in the cap there beside Travis is Luke, child number 5. That's the fourth one getting out of the tractor. Our sixth child, Sarah, I think is probably on the Ranger back behind. But anyway, you notice I'm not in the picture. I didn't need to be. They had it under control, had it whipped out. So that was 2 years ago, and installing the drip system on our farm. I'll go to the next slide. This is an overview of the 160 acres that the drip system is at. Only reason I point that out primarily is as we get to it, I am the 4th generation farming that farm. And what Kelly talked about, or Steve, I think, mentioned about your soil type and your texture. It's where you're at. That's what you got. And why my great-grandfather didn't settle east of here in more Donovan County, where they got tremendous soil texture, I don't know. But we got what we got, and we're going to deal with it. So that's what we did. You'll see the pond in this part of the country. I should say this is located about 30 miles west of here. We don't have a lot of water available underneath the ground. We've got to create our own water supply, i.e. the pond that we built. It actually happened that my brother-in-law came to me about 3 years ago. He said, I think we can dam up that creek and make a pond there and we can irrigate. And I said, really? You think so? Yes, I think we can do this. And so the project is split 50-50. That 50% of the costs and everything went into it is from Roki Farms or our operation. The other 50% is their operation. And we've got each of us, they've only got 80 acres currently under irrigation that's organic, that we've sized everything, all the irrigation, the pumps, the filters and everything are sized for another 80 acres. So both of us will have 160 under over irrigation. And as time goes on here in the future, we'll get that all set up. The little pump station we have there is where we're pumping out of, typical system that you're gonna get set up with if you get into drip irrigation. Okay, moving on then. So we get into the swine effluent part of it. This is about a mile north of where that pond is. I have 2 hog buildings that both hold 1,100 head of swine. To the east of them then is 2 lagoons. Right directly east of the building, you can barely see it right there. That is a concrete, that's the first settling lagoon that the manure goes into. From there then, the top of that goes over into the earthen lagoon. The reason I got to point this out is as Kelly said, sometimes it's just dumb luck. These buildings are almost 10 years old, way before I ever thought about drip irrigation. But it so happens that a two-stage lagoon really works a lot better for drip irrigation. Because of those emitters, we've got to get this product through them. So consequently, we can't have very many solids. And I'll touch on that a little bit later as we go into the manure samples. We figured that out. We knew that'd probably be the case. We've actually quantified it a little bit, so we know where that's at. So the second stage of lagoon allows those solids to settle out. So we can pump off the top of that. We got some more pictures as we get to that. We can get that through the sand filters, just like we filter out that pond water, just like you'd filter out your deep water coming from the ground. Filter it out and be able to run that through the emitters and still have some nutrient value left over after we do all that filtration process. Okay. So this is how we got started. Last year, I decided, okay, somehow I got to get this manure from the hog building a mile away, a little over a mile away, down to the shipping container where all the drip irrigation system, the pump and the filters. First, I decided, okay, I've got this manure wagon. I got to get rid of this manure. We'll suck it up with the manure wagon. Next slide takes us down there, pump it into the main line, and we did that, 4,000 gallons at a time. Okay, if you're on manure, that lagoon we saw, it's a 1 million gallon lagoon. That's going to take a long time. Not ideal situation. All right, so Kurt says, well, just put a line from that hog building, mile long, bury it through, drill right through your crop, bury that and put it in the ground, and we'll just pump it down there. Well, that sounds great, but I still was skeptical. Just didn't know if that's what I wanted to do. I consented to buying the pipe. We walked it through the cornfield, laid it on top of the ground, laid it down the road ditch, and I think this slide here shows that's the line laying on the ground as we got down to the shipping container. We did that last year. That was our first year. Did that got started in late July, first part of August, laying that in there. This fall, we buried the line. It works. All right, we've got that figured out. We can do this. So we buried that 3-inch line from the lagoons down to the hog building, or down to the shipping container from the hog building. Last year, what we had, and this is a picture we had the disc filter. I got these a little bit out of order. I should have put the disc filter earlier there. We set up a disc filter system and a pump that NetFM supplied us, put that at the lagoon, sucked up the manure, ran it through the disc filters first, thought maybe that would help filter it out. Maybe. We don't use the disc filters anymore. There's better ways to do it. They work. They have a good application in some places, but for what we're doing in our operation, the disc filters, number one, they plugged up too fast for us. It did provide a pump to pump the manure down there, but since we figured out, you go to the next slide, is we just put the manure in the pump in the shipping container and pulled it down. Clear at the back of the shipping container is the first slide here, a little close up there, the pump and the flow meter down there in the shipping container. We thought that's what we need to do. We'll just pull it down there. That was all the first year. It worked. We thought, you know what? No, we can do better than that. We can do a little bit better. Let's take that pump, put it up at the lagoon instead of pulling, push it down. And it is downhill all the way. Built this little pump shack, little outhouse almost looks like. Put the pump inside there. There's the exact same pump. Put it in there, hooked it up. One more slide gets us what you can see on the outside of the building. The little building there, I got a couple buoys there holding that pipe up so we pull off the top of that lagoon. All the good stuff is, and stuff settled out on the bottom. And so that's what we're currently doing. Eliminated the disc filter pump. We just got the one pump. Had I known all this ahead of time, we could have saved ourselves probably a lot of time and money, more time really than anything. But nonetheless, my kids work pretty cheap because they like to stay at home and eat and get the laundry done. So we can make that work out all right. So that wasn't too bad. So that's what we're currently doing. Okay, a few more points to get into the nitty gritty of this that I want to point out. This pump, go back to that. Let's spend a little bit of time on this slide here to let you know exactly what we're doing here. The pump that we've got set up there will pump 100 gallon a minute. That's what we've sized it for. We're currently this past year here, or in the last couple of months, running closer to what, 65, 70 gallon a minute, I think is what we're doing.
Yep, real close to that.
And we're running water at about 500, 600 gallon a minute.
Generally.
With that, so we're putting our manure about 12%.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
what's that? Go ahead.
You'll notice in the picture here, where we were pumping in last year, still looks the same other than the pump's gone. But we have this, what they call a mixing valve. We bought that through NetFM, as well as the sensor on the wall. We're reading pH and EC. So we're monitoring the EC of the mixed water and manure mixture. Just to, like Tim had talked this morning, we want to watch the ECs in our soil, so we're watching it in the water going out. So that mixing valve will let us, we can tell the controller we want an EC of 4 is kind of what we've kept it at. And that valve will open and close depending on what the sensor's seeing for EC. So that's kind of why what gets us to that 60 to 70 gallon a minute of manure to 500 gallons of water.
We're still all learning on that. I don't know if that's the magic number, if that's where we'll settle on. NutraDrip and Kurt are convinced we can run that manure more than that. At what point do we start damaging roots? If our EC gets too high, that's just all things we're learning, trying to take a look at. Steve talked about that EC before, and I think Tim referred to it too, being able to monitor that with the soil moisture probes and get a value on that EC number. And we'll monitor that and see how that plays out to determine where that level is that we want to be at. Okay, all right, so let's go now then next to some manure sample. This is the manure we're dealing with. This sample was taken, what's it, 9/21, real recent sample. I've got the right one, don't I?
8/21, yeah.
Yeah, yep.
August 21st.
Okay, so we got total, I like to look at the pounds per 1,000 gallon. You compare this to Kelly's plant food. I'm not there. This is not quite plant food, but we got some nutrients value in here. We've got some N, a little bit of phosphorus, good potassium. All right, got some good K here. That's what really got me excited on this manure. And we started looking at this, especially in soybeans. I thought, here's my chance. I'm going to really be able to push the K here number. We'll get to how that's working out for us. The other thing I want to point out is the percent solids here, 1.8. That's what we're running. That's before we went up through the sand filters. This is coming right out of that second stage lagoon. We're solids at 1.8. We can deal with that. Okay, we can deal with solids at 1.8 or thereabouts. All right, we start getting higher than that, which I think is the next sample. This was actually taken July 31st. Our percent solids now are at 3%. And you can see from this Midwest Labs up here, we were working with Jim Ladley with Profit Pro. He's not here today, but I talked to him on the phone. He wanted to be. We were doing some things with his microbes and the rhizobium and different things that he was promoting. We put in our pit. I had a good thing with the lagoon. I was trying to make it better. We're still trying to make it better. We're still working on that. What happened was a lot of our solids went into suspension when we added some of the products he was doing, and we got to a point where at 3%, we were overwhelming the sand filters. We were back flushing almost continually. Not quite, but almost. And really had to back our flows down to be able to pump this stuff. I was really disappointed. I was really sick. I thought we really had messed things up here. I gave it a little more time. We're back there. We're back pumping again. We've got those solids taken care of. I'm not sure where they're at. I'm not sure if they're in the bottom of the lagoon or the microbes have actually done their job and we've digested them. We're going to figure that out. We'll figure out what's going on there for sure. But time will tell there. But nonetheless, we're back to pumping again. The disadvantage, though, is that we should have been on this a little sooner, I think. Should have been pumping earlier in the season.
I might touch on, this sample was taken at 3% solids. So our nutrients, we have a few more nutrients than nitrogen and some of your phosphorus and potassium. Our phosphorus showed the most. So we're thinking that 1% of solids, we have lost some nutrients. But in the manure water as a whole, we still have a lot there that's it's worth capturing. So.
Another little side note, the thing that got me really excited about this too, remember I said this project's 50-50 with my in-laws. And when I looked at these manure, they're organic farmers. I looked at this manure and I thought, wow, this is a good chance to get hold of some of my in-laws' money, right? I can sell them some of this manure on organic acres. This is going to work out slick. I haven't seen that check yet. We're still working on that. We're still dealing with that. But for any of you organic farmers, the manure obviously is going to be going to get your attention. Something we can do in season and run it through the drip system. Okay, so we're still working on that. We'll get there. All right, so tissue samples coming next. Remember I talked about that potassium. Really wanted to capture that, especially in soybeans. This tissue sample, this one's dated
6/18.
6/18. Okay, earlier on. This was also in 19. This is last year as well. This is the control, right? Yep, this one's the control. I didn't circle that one. Control here in that we were not adding any manure to this particular zone in our soybeans. Okay, so I got potassium levels 1.06, I believe it was. I decided we need to hit it. We need to hit the potassium. We start dumping the manure to it. How much later was it then? That don't come through here very good. No, this one was the manure. Okay, this was same date. This one we had the control, no manure. This one we were adding manure. We bumped it a little bit, but just didn't move the needle enough. Just didn't get it there. What was going on there last year? We decided we got it on too late. We needed to start earlier putting this manure on and to get those potassium response. That was our goal for this year. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, with the suspension of the solids, we weren't able to pump the manure as early as I still would have liked to. So we're still going to try that. Still see if that won't help. Let's go to the next slide. So that's the yield map. Okay, I can't find the control zone. I can't find the manure zone. They look the same. They're on there, but you can't pull them out. So we did not see the yield response that I was hoping, i.e. I can't sell that stuff to my in-laws and get the money. All right, so we still got to work on that. All right, so that was last year. So this year we decided, like I said, we're going to try to pump this manure out there a little earlier, get it out there sooner. We didn't get that accomplished. This is my KDHE report that I got to return in every month to KDHE, showing where I applied manure and how and what it all happened. That's just part of the things we do here in the state of Kansas. I'm sure every state's got some kind of similar reporting system if you're applying manure. This is the month of August. The field name, incidentally, of my drip is Morse. Sometimes there's Edelman, that's my in-law. Sometimes I got put on in some of their fields. Nonetheless, those are the gallons. It's about, if you add all those numbers up, about 440,000 gallons of manure we put on in a two-week period. They're supposing we were short on moisture here in August. That's the other challenge we have, is had last year for sure, is that to get that manure on, we need a little water with it. And if it's raining all the time, like it was in July, it's hard to get her done. Okay, so that's a little bit of a challenge we're working with too. Kurt tells me that I can put that manure on straight and forget the water. We'll take a look at that. We'll see if we can't make that happen as well, some way or other. But that's what we got going on. So in other words, we put the manure to it here in August, hoping for a response on the tissue samples. Next slide. Okay, so this was taken. This was another tissue sample here. This was back in, that one was what, July?
Oh, that one you got on your paper. I think that was August 12th.
It should have been August. Yes, it should have been August. Right before we started pumping, August 12th, I believe it was. Potassium level, 1.6, I believe it was. Little bit low. So I said, Travis, all right, here's our chance. This is going to get it. We're going to bang it here. Put the manure to it. Put on those 45,000 gallons. Next slide.
That's what I got the next one.
1.26. We're not at 2. 2 is where I want to be for the potassium on beans. We still didn't quite get there. Probably too late. I'm looking for answers to that. The other thing I see on that is calcium is out of the roof. Is that giving me a problem? Maybe. I don't know. Not sure what all we got going on here that I'm still not seeing the bang that I want to see for that manure. We'll see. I'm not giving up on it. I'm not giving up on it at all. But it isn't giving me quite the results I was hoping for. So we'll see where all that takes us and where all that goes. Couple things I want to point out though. So this talk was entitled Grower Success. Now what I've just been shared with you is just don't maybe not a ball of fire here, not a success. But what you have to realize, if you're not familiar with livestock production, and this is one of the things I'm hoping to get Kelly Garrett, Kelly or Steve, get them guys excited about raising hogs. Maybe we can get this figured out. But the bottom line is they produce manure. They produce effluent. I got to do something with it, and it costs me to do something with it, to the tune of about 1.1 cents a gallon to get rid of it, just to do something with it, just to get it out of the building. So I've got that cost regardless of what I do. Well, if I can put it through the drip system, however, I can get some of that cost recouped. Just to give you an idea, my manure system, this manure system we put in place here, I went through, added up all my costs on putting the pump, the VFDs to run it, all the piping, the electrical work, about a little over $26,000 that I've spent on this. What's my ROI on that? If it's cost me 1 cents a gallon to remove manure regardless, we've just about pumped 1 million gallons. Between the end of last year and what we've done this year, I've just about got it halfway paid for in a year and a half's time. Another year and a half, I got free manure. Even if it doesn't make me anything, at least I don't have to pay to get rid of it. Okay, so that's the other element of with this effluent is that you've got to get rid of it regardless. And if I can run it through the drip system during season, I think I'm going to be money ahead down the road. So that's a selling feature there, regardless of what the nutritional value is or how that all shakes out and what we can learn from that. Have you any thoughts on that?
Not a whole lot.
Okay. I think the next slide gets us to the end. I realize that, like I said, this doesn't apply to everybody, this process, but any questions? Yes, in the back.
When you're
Good question. Good question. First year, we set it up to flush back into the pond. All right, we did that. It worked. Stephen, my brother-in-law, started getting a little nervous about that. He said, I don't know. We're dumping that stuff, that manure, waste, whatever, right back into the pond. What about algae over time, over the years? Can we think we can come up with a better solution? So we did. We had a couple other solutions. One in particular, we thought, well, let's dump it. Remember the pond picture there? That's not too far from the dam where the shipping container is. Let's dump it behind the pond, behind the dam there, and just let it run back down the creek. We ran that past Kurt. Kurt said, you're going to do what? There's a Sabetha City lake a quarter mile away. You're going to dump that into that lake? What if something malfunctioned? What if the valve fouled up and we dump pure manure right into the Sabetha City lake? Oh boy, no, we don't want to deal with that. All right, we don't want that problem. So what we did is what we're currently doing. It's working well. We're actually dumping it right close to the shipping container. There's a diversion terrace. We're dumping it into that diversion terrace. That thing wraps around, goes through one little small settling pond into another settling pond, and all within about a half mile. It takes to filtrate all that through grass and various things. It does wind up in the Sabetha City Lake eventually. But we've got a tremendous filtration, natural filtration process between here and there. I'm very comfortable with what we're doing there. Earlier on, my thoughts were I may have to dig a little separate lagoon and backflush that, put that water into that, and then pump that out every year or two, put it back on my field if I need to do that. That would be an alternative if you don't have some way to divert it out. How big of a problem it is, dumping it back in the pond? We never did really test that and find out, but we're comfortable with what we're doing.
I guess on the technical side of that, so with the controller, we have it set up so the manure stops pumping when it needs to flush the filters. So the manure shuts off. It runs fresh water for about 1.5 minutes to kind of clean all the manure that would still be in the water. And then it starts the backflush cycle. So all we're pumping back into that diversion terrace is actually just the manure solids. And the backflush water, it really doesn't have any stink to it. So we feel like we aren't dumping straight manure back into that terrace.
That's a good point. That backflush water, if you smell it or get it on your hands, it does not stink like manure does.
But no stink.
It's black. Yeah, it looks bad. Looks awful. And I think because we're not filtering out the ammonia, the nitrogen. That's staying in there. That's staying with it. We are filtering out possibly the phosphorus. I think a lot of the solids in hog manure are in the phosphorus. We're probably getting rid of that. A lot of that's settling out in the lagoon as well. The other take-home message of that is my kids will tell you, my children will tell you, if you got leaks in your drip system, fix those before you run the manure through. It just works a lot better. Otherwise, because it does stink and it does make your hands smell for a while. If you got to fix those leaks after the manure's been run through. Other questions?
Did you see any yield difference at all last year?
There was none. There were none on the beans. On the corn, we did not have a control. We did put manure to the corn, so we didn't have it side by side. I only had 2 zones of corn there last year, so we didn't get a good trial on that. And we really don't have a good test going this year either because I got to get into the manure. The lagoon was full beginning of this year since we didn't get as much pump last year, and I said we're just putting it out there. Either good or bad, it can't hurt me any. So we don't have a good number to go back to on yield result this year, but I hope to in the future.
Did you top spread the control or did you put commercial fertilizer on the control?
We did not top spread.
We tried one other potassium source
right.
because that's what we thought our main benefit from the manure would be. We didn't really see any bump from that compared to just irrigation water. So we had kind of 3 different trials, 3 different zones.
There's a commercial K product we did put through the drip system as well, but that didn't show up either on yield.
If you go back, did you do any on corn this year again or not?
No, we didn't. We put just all the zones have got manure on them on the corn is this year as well. We do have some trials going with Jim Ladley, some of his other products with some of the microbes and other stuff that we got some of the trials going on, but not manure versus not manure.
Did you put any more on before planting?
This spring we did it just a little bit, but not.
Oh, that was through the drip as well. I don't know what it ended up being, a couple hundred or
Just a little bit this
gallons an
spring
acre.
through the drip before the growing season, but we did not put any on top of the ground. That is my goal. I don't ever intend to haul manure anymore. I want to come to meetings. I want to look at my ROI and the manure is just doing its thing. Okay, while I'm sleeping or whatever, doesn't matter. Haul manure. What's that?
That's nice.
Yeah, right. It's just nice not to have to worry about it. Now, Travis still has to worry about it. He gets the warning messages on his phone if the pump quits or something like that. But
So your backups from time to time when it's necessary, obviously, but so are you also flushing out the system itself?
Yeah, so I've been monitoring. We haven't been actually flushing the tapes out. We do that. We'll do that in the fall here. I did open the flush valve the other day and noticed it was pretty black, so I probably should do it about once a month at least. But we will for sure in the fall, and then probably run acid or do the sulfur burners on it in a year or two. But I've been monitoring my flow, kind of making sure that stays consistent to what it's designed at. Make sure we aren't plugging up. We have dropped just a tad, but nothing to be concerned about yet.
And that equates to what pH are you on that?
pH, the manure samples, I think have a pH of about 8.
right.
Our irrigation water is about 8.5, 9. So it's high, but that's kind of typical for pond water.
We think we can lower the pH just a little bit. Manure does, but not significantly. There it is.
8.4, yeah.
Other questions? Yes.
Your first concrete lagoon, where you main solid settle out, you have to clean that out once in a while?
Yeah, I do try to, because of it gets a horrendous crust on it. I get a big crust on that concrete lagoon. So every year in the fall, we try to get rid of that, try to agitate it, and get rid of that. There's products out there that I've been adding to that, trying to help with that process. I haven't found a magic bullet on that one yet either. There's just a lot of solids in swine manure, and we've got to deal with them one way or another. And so, every year in the fall, I do try to get that cleaned off, get that crust off of there, and get that taken care of so that I've got capacity then for that to settle out going into another year. Other questions? Okay, I appreciate your time.